So in this video I'm going to look at some of the modifications I've made to my GSPD over the years. Well, I've had it 27 years now, and in that time I've made quite a lot of modifications to the bike, some of which I find very useful. So I'll be running through these, and I'm going to start off with the brakes. So here we are, front brakes. As you can see, it's got a billet 6 caliper, which means there's 3 pairs of pads operating on 6 pistons, and the bike came with this. I've never had the original brake caliper, so it works okay. How much of an improvement it is over the original, I don't know. But the original owner of the bike must have thought it was of benefit. It's got a stainless steel bleed nipple, and this is one of the main issues I've had with the bike, is that the steel bleed nipple interacts galvanically with the aluminium of the caliper, and that means that it has a tendency for galvanic corrosion to occur, and this means that the nipple can seize in position. So in order to stop that from happening, I make a point of loosening the nipple off, moving it in its thread once a month. Otherwise, particularly in winter time, it can become a problem. Moving on from the caliper, you can see that it's got a braided brake hose on it. This hose I obtained from a friend, and it just happened to have the right banjos on the end and be about the right length. I just bought it randomly. It's not a specific part, but I dare say you could obtain them if you look somewhere on eBay, or you can get them made up. The disc is cast iron replacement. I ran the original stainless steel disc for several hundreds of thousands of miles, and then when the original disc wore down, after a time, I put this cast iron disc on. That came from Motorworks, and it's been very good. I prefer the action of it, or the feel of it, to the original stainless steel one. So rear brakes, I've added a steel brake arm. The original aluminium one just blew with corrosion, so I put that on. That came from Motorworks. And then inside the brake drum, I add shims to the brake shoes as the brake shoes wear down. This is because the brake arm reaches up to the end of the adjustment here. I do actually always keep the brake arm. I change the brake arm position on its spline as well from time to time, so that there's more or less a right angle between the pull of the cable and the arm, so that gives maximum torque to the brake shoe. And then inside the brake drum on the brake shoes, where they come into contact with the cam, I put a shim on each shoe as the shoe wears down. So this is just a homemade shim where between the brake can and the brake shoe itself, and that's one on each shoe. This is just an old shim. Now, the actual shims that are inside the brakes at the moment are a little bit longer than this, because that allows them to grip the shoe a bit better. Otherwise they tend to fall off as you try to install the brake shoes. But that's the only modification to the actual rear brake. The rear brake does work really well. I hear reports from some people that they're not impressed by the rear brake, but with those modifications that I've already mentioned, and careful mating of the brake shoe with the surface of the brake drum, this back brake does work really well. Tyres are front and rear a Heidenau K60 Scouts, and I've been using these for a little while now, and I find them very good. Prior to that, I've used the OEM Metzler Sahara 3s, and I have also used Conti TKC 80s. But all round, I find these Heidenaus are really nice. I'm very pleased with them. So, looking at the dash now, or the dashboard, first thing is to point out is that I've got heated grips. These are BMW original ones. There's a 2-position switch on the dashboard. That was originally blanked off with a blanking piece, so you just poke that out and put the switch in when you fit the switches. And one side is maximum heat, in the middle is off, and then on the other side is a lower heat setting. I tend to use only the lower heat setting. Over the years, I've found that if you run it on high heat constantly, it eventually burns out the elements. So I tend to use the lower heat setting. In the winter, I've got handlebar muffs that I put on, and now that I'm getting older, my hands tend to go a bit numb a bit quicker. So I've also got heated gloves. Then on the other side, I've got hazard warning lights. So there's the hazard warning lights there. Again, originally that came with a blanked off switch recess. So I fitted those on. And then in the middle, you can see it's got a clock. That's an original. That's a BMW original accessory. That was fitted when I got the bike. But sometime later I did fit new internals because the liquid crystal went all strange. I've since heard that you can repair that, but I've never investigated. I've still got the original clock, and one of these days I'll have a play with it, see if I can get it to improve. Then just above the hazard warning light switch, you can see here, that's a fibre optic rear lamp warning device. So I've got a piece of fibre optic running from the rear lamp up along the vehicle frame that comes out in here. You can just see the little dot in the centre there, and that lights up to show when the rear light's on or when the brake light is on. That would tell me that it's working. So you can see if I squeeze the front brake lever, it lights up, and if I turn the lights on, you can also see that it lights up. It probably is better from where I'm standing than you viewing it through the camera, but anyway, it does work. So there it is with the tail light on, and then if I squeeze the brake lever again, you can see the brake light coming on as well. On the left-hand side here, this is what's called a battery status monitor, which came from a company called AO Services, and this behaves like a voltmeter, in that when the battery is not charging, you get a red light showing, similar to the battery warning light, you get when you turn the ignition on. But the nice thing about this is that it changes colour, as you can see in the photo I've put in on the video here. You can see it changes colour to give you an indication as to how the system voltage is behaving, and it's very good. I'm very pleased with it. It's the next best thing to putting a voltmeter in, and I like it, and as I say, that comes from AO Services. Now, looking underneath the throttle, I've got this device here which is called a flipper lever, and that's just like a friction device. It's like a lot of BMWs have a knurled screw there that you can screw in or out like a thumb screw, but this is a flip device, so you can flip that on and then twist the throttle and it will hold the throttle open. You can still move the throttle, it's just a friction device. If you let go, if you flip it off, it just flicks back as normal. It's really useful for lots of different things, one of which is balancing the carburetors. When I want to balance the cable, I can just open the throttle a little and hold it there and then mess around with the cables until I get the balance right on the mercury manometer I have. And then lastly there you can see that I've got a compass that's made by Ritchie. Not many people around with compasses on their bikes, I know, but I find it useful, and so there it is. It works very well. It doesn't suffer from vibration. It's pretty accurate. It's accurate enough for my needs. Then after that, I've got a screen extension. This one's a laminar lip, and it's held on by little velcro pads, so you can take it off if you want to. I never thought I needed one until I tried my buddy's bike who had one and found it made a great improvement. So it works for me. I'm not that tall, I'm about 5'8", 5'9", and it does a really good job, keeps the wind off your face and off your body. So moving to the front, I've got a plastic lens over my headlamp. That's from Motorworks. I did actually get a stone hole in my original headlamp. It was only a small one and it stayed like it for a long time, but when I replaced the lens with a new one, I put this plastic shield on the front as well. There's the low front mud guard, which I put on. The bike originally came with a high front mud guard, and I fitted the low one, the original BMW low front mud guard, which I replaced. So here we have a Corbin Solo seat, which I put on a while after riding around with a dual seat, and on the top of that, held on by these poppers at the back here, and at the front is a sheepskin seat cover, which is brilliant. The Corbin seat is comfortable enough. That's really comfortable, but the sheepskin seat cover just adds a bit to the comfort. I can ride for hours and hours and hours without stopping. My most recent trip, coming back from Portugal this year, it was necessary for me to get back as quickly as possible because my wife had come down with flu and she was on her own. So I rode from Limoges to home, which was a total of 565 miles. I only stopped twice for petrol and once for the Eurotunnel, and I could have carried on riding for much longer. So it's a very, very comfortable setup. And then behind the Corbin seat, I've got an additional rack This part is the original rack that came with the bike, and then there's this additional intermediate section which is original BMW. I believe there are others available from other manufacturers. Under the seat there's of course the toolbox with some additional tools in it, but also up the frame tube I have this tool roll which also contains additional stuff. That's a useful thing. It's a zipped up tool roll. It was a present from a friend, so I don't know where it came from, but it's a neat little thing. Anything you want to stash away, you could stash some. If you're travelling, you could stash some money in there easily. It just unzips, and I've got a few extra tools in there. Now, luggage wise, I've got Touratech aluminium panniers, which I use. They work, they do the job. I've had them for years. Bike originally came with BMW's own panniers, which were plastic, but I took those off. Not much else to say about the alley panniers. That's what I like, that's what I use. Okay, moving on to suspension. Well, the front suspension has no modifications at the moment. A good friend of mine actually gave me some progressive fork springs, but I've not as yet fitted them, and I've never really felt the inclination to fit progressive fork springs, but since I've got them now, I may give them a try at some stage. The rear suspension, well, originally when I got the bike it had a WP rear damper fitted, which was excellent. I really liked it, and I wore it out and had it repaired a couple of times, but eventually the internals just got so worn and the damper rod was showing signs of wear. So I got another WP damper. You've got to bear in mind that this bike's done over 400,000 miles, so it gets a lot of use and it gets a lot of travel on rough roads, because I do a lot of long distance travelling, Russia and Asia and Africa, places like that. Anyway, so the second WP damper wore out, and then I fitted a nitron damper. But I didn't like that so much. It was alright, but it wasn't as good as the WP. So then on some advice from people on the Airheads Facebook page, I tried out a Wilbur's damper, which is they're made in Germany, and that I like a lot. It's a very nice damper, and the thing I like about it is that you can adjust the spring rating remotely on this handle. So you can adjust the spring, and of course, like all the other dampers, they all had adjustable rebound damping, and the WP dampers had compression damping as well. But this Wilbur's doesn't. Anyway, that's not been an issue for me. I'm quite happy with the way the damper performs, since I can't get WP dampers anymore, this is fine. In fact, even if I could get a WP damper, I wouldn't exchange this out for one. I still have a WP damper knocking around in my shed, and maybe at some stage I'll try and get that repaired again, but for the moment I'm happy with this. So moving on from the rear damper, then we're looking at the paralever bearings. These paralever bearings here, they are a set of bushes as opposed to bearings, which I got from Motorworks. The trouble with the OEM bearings is that they tend to get notchy over a period of time, and so these bushes are reckoned to be very good. I did have an early set which had aluminium pivots, and one of them broke. And Motorworks were very good about it. They gave me a replacement set straight away. These ones now have steel pivots, so I don't think there's any issue with them breaking. Right. So at the moment I've got the original side stand on, which I have attached an extensions to make it easier to deploy. It's the lesser of all the evils. I've had other side stands. I've had a MIG-seal side stand, which wasn't really strong enough. That actually bent, and I had got it actually repaired by MIG-seal, but I was never happy with it afterwards. And I also had, or have, a Surefoot side stand, which is very crudely made. I'm not impressed with the quality or design and quality of manufacture. It works, but it's a crude old device. But having said that, at some stage I've also modified it actually to take a grease nipple, because there's no bushing on the pivot. It's just steel on steel. It wears really rapidly, so I put a grease nipple on it. At some stage maybe I'll make my own stand. We'll see. The BMW OEM one, the problem with that is that when the bike's loaded up, it's if the bike has got a full tank of fuel on and all the panniers and rack loaded up, it can make it a bit top heavy, and on a sloping surface, if the road surface is cambering away from you, it can make the bike a bit prone to wanting to tip over. It never has done, but I've actually felt it going once or twice. So I don't like the position of the OEM side stand, but there we are. That's how I'm rolling at the moment. And if anyone's got any suggestions for a better side stand other than the MIG-seal or the Surefoot, neither of which I like very much, then please make your suggestion.